Hello and shalom to everybody out there in this great big world that I call social media. This is your brother from Chicago, Dana. Um, I know I've been coming before you once a day now for the last several days, and I hope you're not getting to the point where you're like, okay, give us a break, all right? But when the Most High Yah continues to drop things in my heart, it burns you. And it compels me so much that it doesn't even matter what I'm doing. The other day, I left my food in the microwave, and by the time I was done, I had to either re-microwave it, or by that time it'd be nasty. Double this, now I threw it away. But I say this because growing up after I met the Most High Yah through Yahshua HaMashiach, I repeated this over and over to myself, that I no longer belong to myself, but I've been purchased by a mighty deed that came at a mighty cost. And I now belong to the Most High Yah. So it's not about my desires or my wants, but it is about my life serving the Master who redeemed me. Redeemed me back then to knowing the depth of what that redemption was going to mean for me, coming to this revelation of who the true chosen people are. And so my desire, as I have been sharing since I've been on YouTube, is the same desire I had for all these years before I met you through YouTube. And it's to give my life to God, which now I know is to give my life to Yah, and to be a living example of the life of Yahshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. So tonight I want to bring up a topic for my Gentile brothers and sisters that I hear all the time as an explanation or an excuse to Christianity and America, aka Babylon the Great, in their role and responsibilities in that of our abuse, massive, extensive abuse of our African brothers and sisters, which has also turned into, now we call them blacks, also people of other color and nationalities and minorities, that this country has made it very clear that you are not valuable and you are only tolerable when you remain in your place, which is inferior to us and to Christianity. And so I'm going to talk about one of the excuses that they give. And so before I even get to answering this excuse that my Gentile evangelicals give all the time, today I was watching President Trump, and I hope this will all fit together by the time I get to the end. But I was listening a little bit to him sharing with his daily update, and it just marvels me how at one point this man for weeks was saying that this coronavirus was a hoax. And repeatedly at these rallies, he said, it's a hoax. It is a deploy of the Democrats to mess up my name and destroy my ability or my winning of the next election in 2020. And at first that made me upset. I mean, and it does, because again, he's never taken responsibility for what he used to call a hoax that he now calls this invisible enemy. He's never taken responsibility and said, I was wrong. And even though that saddens me now because we're in this situation, I also know that in the onset of it, the only people that were suffering from it were his people, because they were the ones that were now living in ignorance, following ignorance, the blind leading the blind, But yes, it has completely impacted us all. But remember again, if the Most High Yah is somewhat using your release out of the hands of the Egyptians, since that's, for me at least, the only thing that I have to go back to in guidance and some type of understanding now, the first two plagues did affect the Hebrews. And the reason why your ancestors, and the only reason why I know that, is because in Exodus 8 or 9, when he talks about, I believe it was either the flies or the locusts, but which I believe was the third plague to hit Egypt, the Most High Yah said, but this time, this plague will not go into Goshen. And I will make a separation between my people and the Egyptians. So I take it not a surprise or to be confused if we see, as we see, this coronavirus also impacting the lives of you Hebrews. But as you know, soon, or maybe the next one that's on its way, the Most High Yah will then clearly make his distinction of who the true chosen people are and who the Gentiles are. But now we have a president that went from a big hoax to this invisible enemy. And he said basically these words, that we in America are seeing something that we have never seen before. This invisible thing that is our invisible enemy. And the reason why we have never seen this before is because we are now officially entering a season where the times of the Gentiles, the favor of the Gentiles, which is found in Romans, is now coming to the end. So we as Gentiles have never faced any type of justice or accountability or consequences for our behavior as Gentiles, and then Gentiles that have now joined arms and forces with Babylon the Great, which is America, the land of America, all of what we've done. And then the spiritual side is Christianity that has coinsynced with America and all of that to now be Babylon the Great, which has killed and enslaved the true chosen Hebrews, which are our black brothers and sisters that came from Africa. So don't be shocked that what we're about to experience and what we're experiencing now, we've never seen, because we as Gentiles have never faced any of those consequences. And that's why the arrogance within you Gentiles and white America is growing, especially in the evangelicals, because you have never received any type of punishment or judgment, justice for what we have done. So the time of the Gentiles is now over. The reign of Esau is ending. It's payback time. It's time for justice, to reap what we have sown. Judgment from a God that will not be stopped, because his word is true. His word is true. And so as I first say this, I know I have all my white, not all, The majority of my white evangelicals, they come up with the same thing. Well, Dana, they get mad because, again, they have an excuse that I've never owned a slave. So therefore, you're going to tell me God is going to hold me accountable when I have never owned a slave. And in fact, Brother Dana, I come from southern Minnesota just like you. How many blacks live around us? And you're going to tell me I never owned a slave. So evangelicals believe in their heart that God, the God they serve, will not hold them accountable for an action or a deed that they never partook in. From the onset, I would say, well, that sounds justifiable. But yet you as evangelicals teach and preach this very clearly about homosexuality and abortion. And you claim that if we allow these things to happen, God is going to judge us as a nation. My confusion between how you view these sins, the sin of slavery and white supremacy versus the sins of homosexuality and abortion, is that you're saying on this hand, your God will not hold you accountable or responsible because you never ever physically had a slave. But yet on this hand, I did some research, and it says within United States, with a population of 327 million people, at the most top end, there may be between 4 and 4.5% individuals that call them homosexual. And that is 14,700,000 out of 327 million. And then I looked at the abortions that took place in 2019, and there was 862,320. So let me see if I can get this up to you so you can see those numbers. And so what my white evangelicals are saying is, now that God will hold every American in this country responsible for the little over 15 million people, that's combining those who had abortions last year and those who call themselves homosexual, combining those two numbers, let's give us about 15,500,000, that those 15,500,000 people will be held accountable and responsible for all 327 million people in this country, meaning that the majority of the civilians that live here and the evangelicals that live in this country have not had an abortion or do not claim to be a homosexual. So God will hold you accountable, this nation, for those sins, but yet has no problem with the sin of slavery. When you say, I never partook in slavery. Well, what about me? I've never had a abortion, and I'm not living in your sins. My mom has never. My cousin has never. And yet now they have to face the consequences of these sins. But yet God is going to overlook holding us accountable as a nation for the sins that we committed against Africans in the African slave trade. And so let me just throw some numbers out to you there. How many? During the slave trade, between 10 and 15 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic between the 1500 and 1900. But this figure grossly underestimates the actual number of Africans enslaved, killed, or displaced as a result of the slave trade. And at least 2 million Africans, 10 to 15% of them, died during the actual slave trade itself. No fewer than 2.5 million Africans died during their journey. Their bodies were thrown to the sharks. that trailed these ships across the sea. You know why those sharks trailed? Because they were being fed on a regular basis. The bodies of Africans that we as a nation stole, took, and have killed. 2 million minimum during the passage. And the 10.6 million who made it to the other side became slaves on the plantations. And I tried to find the number of slaves that were killed during when slavery was rightfully or boldly accepted. I couldn't find a number. And finally, I found an explanation to why we can never declare how many blacks were murdered in this country during the foundational slave days. Because they said no one knows how many infants were slaughtered, how many infants were used as alligator bait, how many children were killed, elderly, and their bodies left to decay. Nobody recognizing that they were even a part or amongst the living. There's no way to add up the millions of blacks that even just during those stages went up until the Civil War. How many blacks were killed at the hands of Christian America? And I'm not even going to right now talk about all of our black brothers and sisters that are being murdered out in these streets and wrongfully executed and put in our correctional facilities, because the attitude that was in our forefathers during the slavery times and killing a slave or using the baby as alligator bait is no different than the mindset of our forefathers when they lynched our black brothers and sisters from a tree. They would take pictures of it, and most of it would happen after church on a Sunday afternoon, and it would be where the people from the Christian church would gather around, watch this man or woman or child or family be lynched, and afterwards have a party and a barbecue out in the park next to the church. That same spirit is in you Gentiles, you white evangelicals today. That when you see a young man running or a young man selling something on a street corner or by a store, and they're shot 18 times or they're snuffed out with the grip of a police officer. Same thing followed from the slavery to the lynching to the shootings. They might have deserved it. That slave tried to run away, so he deserved it. That slave started empowering my other slaves. He deserved it. This so-called black man looked at a white female, so we think he deserves to be hanging from that tree. And to teach the other in our city, there's his son and his daughter next to him. And today, I need to know the whole story. There must be a reason why the officer put 18 bullets in the back of that young black man's back. He looked like a gang member. He was probably about to stir up some problems. It's the same spirit. It's never changed. It's just transformed over the generations. And before I even move a little bit more further, I want to add this to the soil of seeds that white America, Christianity, has planted. And that is the millions of Native American Indians we slaughtered. See, by the close of the Indian War in the late 19th century, fewer than 238,000 indigenous people remained. This goes on to say this was a sharp decline from the estimated 10 to 15 million Native American Indians that lived prior to the man that we have worshiped for years underneath the name of Christopher Columbus in 1492. Before he put his feet onto this land that we call the great America, we call the land of the free, that we are Christian and we believe in the Bible and we stand for the Bible. We killed 11,762,000 Native American Indians. And so my question goes out to the Christian evangelical white church here in America. When have we ever acknowledged this? Accepted responsibility for this? Confessed and repaid? And you know why we never have? Because it's never ended. It's never ended. We have condoned hate. We have condoned the fact in our Christian teaching that blacks are inferior to us. Therefore, we've justified killing them on the boat coming from Africa. We've justified killing them during slavery times. We've justified lynching them during the 50s and the 60s and the 40s. And now we justify slaughtering them, imprisoning them. Because the same spirit exists. And a curse, a generational lifestyle or a generational habit or a generational ways of doing things, tradition or thinking can never be changed if it's never acknowledged and then transformed. But don't repent for me. Because I'm not the one that created the coronavirus. I'm not the one that has kept the coronavirus from infecting a nation of Christians who will begin to be perplexed that when they're praying and they're seeking and they're repenting of the sin of abortion and homosexuality, they will continue to receive the plagues because you are forgetting that the plagues in the judgment isn't coming at this point due to the fact of homosexuality or abortion. But it's coming, if I want to put it in chronological order, it's coming because the greatest sin of this nation that needs to be and will be dealt with now is the sin of us capturing and enslaving the true chosen people of the Most High Yah, the Hebrews, the apple of the eye of the Most High Yah, which is our black brothers and sisters. That is the sin that the Most High Yah is dealing with now. Because also he is dealing with the promise he gave his children that they would not remain in bondage forever. And at one point Esau will step aside because Jacob is going to come into his eternal place of reign. And just like back in Romans, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles. That is where we are now. His true chosen people fell by the sword of Christian America. His children were led away captive by boats into all the nations by white Gentiles. given the blessing from the Church of the Roman Catholics, which then from there evolved Christianity with the same line of thinking that it is okay and ordained by God for white man to rule over black. And any individual that has the shade of color darker than us. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles. Who is in Jerusalem right now? Two religions that are not of the people of the book, the true chosen. I've been there. You have the Jews here and you have the Muslims here, right next to each other, almost in the center of the city of Jerusalem, where the Muslims believe this is where Isaac was almost sacrificed. And the Jews in this corner are saying this is where the temple used to be. But both of them are Gentiles that have trodden down the city of Jerusalem. And all of this will happen until when? The time of the Gentiles comes to fulfillment. And what you see in this coronavirus is the beginning stages. A witness unto us Gentiles that our time of God's favor, patience, grace is coming to an end. Our time is up. And if I go to verse 25 here in Romans, and please forgive me right now for getting exactly which chapter of Romans I am coming from. Sometimes in my haste, I do not put that there. So I will put that in the notes. But when I read on to verse 25, and it says, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." So, how do I know we're entering that time? Because there's signs. But I want to look at this. "And upon the earth, distress of nations." Today, President Trump, now who believes that, again, as I said, the coronavirus is not a hoax, but that it is this invisible enemy that has reached like 147 or 174 countries across the globe. That it is wreaking havoc on all of these countries, or in other words, distress of nations. And then what gets me is when it says with perplexity, and even our president and doctors are scratching their head as they say, we have never seen this before. I'm perplexed. How? We built a wall. We're building a wall around America. How? I'm outlawing abortion. How? I am ruling against homosexuality. And I'm putting Bibles back. How? The sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear. Watch, where is the faith of white evangelicals? Watch their fear. Watch. And for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Revelations chapter 18. Verse 4, "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people. That is why I declare with my mouth, I have officially for several years now come out of her, the great Babylon. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the white supreme God that she serves in the form of Christianity. I come out of her, the great Babylon, and I join his people, my black brothers and sisters in this nation. I cleave to them with an unwavering loyalty. For I will no longer be partakers of the sins of Babylon the Great, and that ye